Now let's add the data that we are hard coding over here into the Excel sheet and try to read it from Excel by implementing data providers. So what we need to do is wherever we have added the Excel file, it is inside src test resources com w2a Excel, and from here I can just copy this path and so let me delete these sheets and before deleting it, so what are the things that we would be needing is we need a test suite. We will be defining the run modes, right? So let's say the very first test we have created over here is a login test. So this should be the test name and the run mode is Y. Right. So run modes and the data provider remain same as we have seen in the case of data-driven framework. So over here we'll be saying username and the password. Right, I'll remove these columns. Run mode as yes. And copy the username and then the password. Right. And the sheet name should be same as of the test name, class name, right? So after doing this, what we need to do is we need to mention the data provider class. So we are keeping the data provider in a common class that is utilities. So like we have done in the data driven framework initially, if you take a look at your data driven framework, then in test cases, what we were doing is we were specifying that data provider class is test util, that is our utilities in page object model, utilities dot class, and the data provider is this TP. So same way, if you take a look at utilities, we have given the name of the data provider as TP. So I'm gonna mention the class name as utilities, import it, and the data provider is TP. And then we need to pass on the arguments using the hash table. So we're gonna copy this and put it over here. So now we can say this is your username column. So data dot get the key as username, and over here data dot get the key as password. Right. So this data will be picked up from the Excel sheet now. Right. And with errors is test util basically. Right. So let's try to run it once more and see if the data is being picked from the Excel sheet. So this is our project and run it via Chrome. So let's see. And Chrome browser shows up. Click on login. See, it has taken the username and password from the Excel sheet. Now it's sending out the email. Right. So this is how the very first test it executed absolutely fine. Now, in order to add more test cases, the second test will be what we were doing after this is, let's say the second test is creating an account, right? So after login, we want to create an account. So I can create another test case and say create account test. Right. So method public void create account test should be @test, and then the data provider class is equal to utilities dot class, and the data provider name is equal to dp. Right, this is how we have done in the login test as well. Right, and then we need a hash table where we'll be reading the data from for creating an account, right? And in create account test, I'll be adding up a sheet over here. This is create account test, and over here the run mode as y. So account, I'll be creating it, let's say account name, Raman. Right. So over here in the login test, we were going to the CRM, then going to the accounts page, and then creating account. So I'm gonna take it from here and paste it over here. So this ZP reference, we're gonna get it from the object of Zoho app page. So I can remove this from here, and I'll say Zoho app page ZP equal to new Zoho app page, like this. Right. So here the data will gonna come from data.get and its account name. So this should be the second test. Right. Same way like we have defined the first test in test.ng.xml. So again, we'll go to the runner and we'll add the second test, which is create account test. And over here, create account test. Right. So let's run this again. And let's see if it works up till end. Okay, so there's an error. Let's see. There is negative array size exception. And let's see. exception is at Java utilities line 40. So utilities line 40 is over here, right? Let's see what the exception is. It should be over here itself. Let's look at the sheet. Column name is account name. Oh, okay, there's a mistake over here. So there's create account test. So it was not able to identify the sheet name. Right, let's run it once more. And let's see. It goes to CRM. And it worked, right? So both the test cases successfully got executed to run no failures, right? And all the time an email is also being shut up. So if we go back to the project, we'll see the reports. So we have both the test cases working fine. So here we don't have any logs. This is because we haven't changed the second test where we are actually going to CRM and doing all these things. We have all the locators defined over here itself, right? So this should be click. I'll very quick gonna change it. So this is like click. I'll change this to CRM link underscore CSS. And in OR properties, I'll say CRM link underscore CSS equal to this, right? So after clicking on this, go to accounts. So this is accounts tab. Accounts tab underscore CSS equal to this. So copy this, and this should be click. And this is a class which is not extending our page class. So here it should be page.click. Change click to static. Okay, so we need to implement these methods as static as well if we are calling it anywhere else over here, right? So we need to go to page class. If you want to call common keywords, these has to be static as well. right? Otherwise, this top menu class will not be able to access it. So then, after going to account, then we need to go to create accounts. This is a create account button. I'll say create account button underscore CSS. And then I'll just remove this and say click. Right. After this, we need to provide the account name. Right. So account name is, just copy this, say account name underscore CSS equal to this, right? And account name underscore CSS. So over here we are typing, so let's say type and the value. Right. So now let's run it once more. And finally everything worked. Right, so let's go back and look at the reports. So this is the first test and this is the second. Right, so all things are being tracked over here. All the logs being maintained over here. Right. So after this, we also want to make sure if any test case fail, a screenshot is being captured or not, right? So let's forcefully fail both the test cases. Like in the first test, uh, that is the login test. So I'll go to the login test and forcefully fail this test first. And I'll say assert dot fail login test failed. Right, same way in the create account test, I'll say assert dot fail create account test fail. So I just want to make sure when both the tests they fail, So screenshot should be captured for all the test cases in case of a failure. So let's see if it happens or not. So this time we should look at the email. We have two failures, right? So let's see. Let's look at the mail and click uh, the link from the mail itself. So see, for every execution, the mail is coming. This is the latest one. We'll click on this and see the report and the failure assertion, login test failed, and here's your screenshot, right? After this, the create account test failed, and here your screenshot, right? So the screenshots are being captured on every failure, right? So this is how you're gonna fail the test case. Whenever a test case is failed, you're gonna see a screenshot as well. So these things are completely same as we have done it in the data-driven framework, right? Page object model is just a design pattern, right? So the base approach is whatever utilities that you have added, TestNG, data providers, will gonna remain same as we have seen in data-driven, right? So after this, your task will be just to add more and more test cases and first add more pages. For every page, there should be one class, and for all the functionalities that is inside that page, then you need to add all functionalities in form of a method like this. And once the business pages are designed, you need to create test cases. Like we have done it over here. We have created a separate test case for login and separate test case for create account. In create account, you can see we are calling all these business pages, right? So if there is any changes done in the specification in business pages, you need not to do that change in your test cases. That is what the page object model it means. So in page object model, whichever functionality is responsible for taking you to the next page should actually return you the object of that page. So do login is taking us to the Zoho app page. So do login is responsible for returning the object of Zoho app page. That is how you should be doing it. Right, and utilities, everything remains same. Your Jenkins remains same. Maven execution, it remains same. All the listeners that we have seen in case of data driven, all listeners will gonna remain same. So there are no changes to it. Right? Just the design pattern. We are taking out the business logic from our test cases and implementing them separate in a different main package over here, right? So this is how the page object model is being designed. So again, I mean, this is just a basic approach. Once we study page factories, then after that, we'll be combining both page object and page factories, and we'll be creating some more wrappers and using the concept of generics, and we'll be designing a very high level framework, right? So in the next session, what we're gonna do is whatever code that we have written so far, we're gonna check in this code to our GitHub repository, right? So automation architect, I mean, it does not only means that you need to design a framework. It also means that you should be familiar with different like tools like Jenkins, GitHub. You should be able to manage your project, how to check in and check out your code, right? So these are the responsibilities of an architect as well, right? So it's responsible for setting up the entire thing that you need to automate your stuff, right? Before starting with automation, all these things, all your Jenkins, your continuous integration should be there in the place, right? So in the next lecture, we're gonna look at how we're gonna set up our GitHub account and how we're gonna check in our code over there, perform continuous integration. So these are some of the things that we're gonna see in this project, in the third project in Page Object Model Basics. So how to check in and check out the code as well. All right.